son that you have to live with? Being interviewed by the famous Caroline Halco, I'm a little nervous.
Oh.
Stitcher Queen.
Yes, you're so funny. All right. Hello, FlossTube. It is Thursday, August 22nd, 2019, and I managed to convince my husband, John, to come on and chat with us a little bit about some things here at the cottage.
I've been begging her to let me be interviewed for months, but she thought I would embarrass her. That's the truth.
Yes, yes. It's taken 2 years, but finally he's here.
Here I am.
Here you are. So, because I've been sharing updates every day about my stitching that I've been doing up here, I'm going to do that first, so that in case there's people who are watching who really aren't interested in the cottage stuff, then they can just chat with me about my stitching, and then they'll just go and watch somebody else.
You keep looking over at me.
I know.
But you told me to look at the screen and look at you there.
I'm
so
sorry.
You're breaking your own rules.
I know, it's really weird having you here. Okay, so Quaker Diamonds by Rosewood Manor is what I've been working on. You've been seeing me stitch it, and I made some progress last night and this morning. So if you want to help, it's going to go in front of you a little bit there. So I finished all the way over to the far right corner. That is now complete. Are you hiding? Are you going to be like this? I like it. So there you go. 28 count. I'm completely discombobulated having you here. This is very strange. 28 count linen and Vicky Clayton flosses, silk threads. And that is all I did since last night. So, okay?
Okay.
So I shared my stitching, and that I took care of that. Did you have any questions for me about my stitching?
Why does it take you so long to get it done?
Well, now that's a very good question. I'm not a monogamous stitcher.
Hopefully you're monogamous in other ways.
Yes, yes.
That's a different conversation.
Funny. I work on multiple projects, as you know, at one time, and I like really, really big projects, so they take me a really long time.
Okay.
That's why.
Fair enough.
Did you know that the entire title of my channel name is From the Stash Pile?
I think I knew that.
Did you know that? Off the Grid Needlearts, From the Stash Pile. Do you think I have too much stash?
I think you've got it hidden away somewhere that I can't find it, so I can't really comment on your stash pile. I try to stay away from that sort of thing.
Oh, that's a pretty good answer. I like that. Okay, so what I've done is I have gone through all of the comments from the last 2 videos, anything that I thought might be more interesting coming from the man who built our cottage here. So I've taken photographs of everything. Some of them are kind of duplicate questions, so as we answer them as we go through, then I think it'll become clear. Okay?
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So the first one is from Immy, and there's several questions in one. She's got a few different questions. First of all is about the water situation.
Okay.
I had talked about having short showers.
Right.
Okay, now before we start this question, have I told you that I am wordy, that I talk a lot? I'm gonna really try hard to be brief, but it's hard for me sometimes.
You told me to only look at the camera,
right.
So.
Right, only look at the camera. Okay, you can look at me once in a while, that's okay.
So you want me to keep my answers brief, is that
Keep
what you're
your
saying?
answers brief because we have a lot of questions to
All
get
right.
through, and I already talk a lot.
I will be as brief as I can.
Okay. I may have misled people because I talked about the 5-gallon tank. But I don't think I mentioned that we have 2 tanks. The 5-gallon one is our hot water tank.
Right.
We have a bigger tank underneath. I
That's
think
right.
I may have misled people and they thought that we only had a 5-gallon water tank, period.
Right. So
Okay.
yeah, the full tank, the water tank, is about 25 gallons.
Right.
And the hot water tank is only 5 gallons. So you can take as long a shower as you like, as long as you don't mind the water going cold on you after about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So it is a very small tank. And the only reason it's that small is because we heat it with propane, and we don't want to use too much propane trying to keep the tank warm all the time. So it's to try to save resources. It's only a small tank.
Right.
There you go.
Good answer.
Okay.
Okay, so Emmy wants to know, is it legal to use the lake water for the cabin's shower and toilets if you run it in through a filter? Looks like she's in Australia. So she says, we filter extremely high micron count our dam water for showers, so the tannins from the overhanging eucalypt gum trees don't stain the ceramic toilet. It's clean enough for the dishwasher and the kitchen sink. So we do filter the water that comes in from the lake.
Yep, we do filter it, and it is totally legal. Most people around here get their water from the lake. And yes, we have a filter before the water tank. We have a filter after the water tank, and then we've got a further 3 filter and reverse osmosis filter for the drinking water. So the once the main filters have done their job, then you shower in that water essentially, and it takes out most contaminants. As far as we know, anyway, we've never had a problem with anything in that regard. We don't have anything here that discolors the porcelain or anything like that,
right.
So we haven't had to worry about that sort of thing. We mostly just filter it to get out as many contaminants and small particulate stuff as we can. The micron, I think we filter as little as 5 micron or something at some point, but I'm not quite sure where in the filtration process that is.
Okay.
There you go.
Good. Now, the next one says, your area has 1,000 or so islands, which again leads me to another mistake that I have made when I was corrected by my mother this morning. I frequently call this area where we are the 1,000 Islands. I am incorrect. We are not in the 1,000 Islands. The area that we're in is known as the 30,000 Islands. The 1,000 Islands is another part of Ontario, and as John explained to me this morning, is an actual name of a location, 1,000 Islands.
Right.
That is not where we are. We're in the 30,000 Islands, but the 30,000, that term is more like a...
It's a nickname, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not anything official. I think
don't know
some sort of tourist bureau or somebody who runs a tourist boat up here came up with that years ago. And I don't know that anybody's actually taken the time to count the 30,000 islands on the map. I'm sure they're being rather generous there, but yeah, that's the nickname for this area.
It probably also depends on the water levels, because when the water levels drop, we probably have a few extra 1,000 islands.
There you go.
Around.
Yeah.
So she wants to know, is there sewerage on the inhabited ones, like where we are?
You mean a septic system of some kind? Is that what she's referring to?
I'm not exactly sure. You could read that question both ways. Like Perry Island has septic, like not septic, but they're on town water, right? I
don't know what they're on, to be honest. They may have individual septic systems on each lot, or they may have some sort of a town waste system. I'm really not sure. Out here on the islands, you have to have your own septic tank. So it's a sort of a tank system, and then the waste goes through the tanks, and then it filters out through what's called a filtration bed, which is several layers of gravel and dirt and all that sort of thing until it becomes part of the environment again. It's supposed to be quite environmentally friendly way to do things. No chemical treatments or anything like that. It's also still perfectly legal to have an outhouse in this part of the world, and we have one of those as a kind of backup and for use in the wintertime. But our main system in the summer is a septic tank system. And our wastewater from the kitchen, the sink and the shower and so forth also go through. Everything goes into the septic tanks, yeah. Yeah, so it's all filtered through there. That's right. Okay, and I think that probably took care of a few questions later on as well. Okay. Lots of people wanted to know about the wastewater and stuff. Gotcha. Okay, I mentioned about how we take care of our garbage inside to prevent attracting the bear. Right. Which I may have been again, I have a habit of doing this, being slightly unclear. When I say we keep our garbage inside, it's inside the breeze room, which is a fully screened in porch. So it's not like we're bringing it inside where there's no ventilation. So it's, it's inside a locked room, but it's fully open to the outside.
So she wants to know, and I like how she phrased this. Lastly, after babysitting your garbage inside the house, how do you control the odor in summer? And really, it's not bad. There's very little odor because it's a locked.
Yeah, they're inside those
canister.
plastic bins that have, that are pretty much sealed up
Yeah.
against smells and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, we don't really have any problem
No.
with it smelling. If we did, then we'd have to find a different solution because
You
part of
wouldn't
the
be
problem
able
is
to.
you tracked animals.
Yeah.
So we have to try to prevent that.
Do you then take it for a little boat trip over to the mainland where there's dumpsters for the islanders? Do your neighbors band together for a rubbish run on the one boat?
Nobody bands together for the rubbish runs. You're right. We take it over in the boat and then we drive it to the landfill site. So there's no dumpster available, but the landfill site is not far away, and that is something that's used by everybody in the township, whether you're on an island or on the mainland.
If you own property out here, you have a permit tag that allows you to use the dump.
Right.
So we do the garbage about once a week.
Yeah, about once a
About
week.
once a week.
We
when
do
go
tend
town.
to team up with our neighbors to go for propane tanks every couple of months when people start to run low, and that's useful to have neighbors to be able to help out because the tanks are rather heavy and awkward. So it's good to have at least a couple of people involved in that run.
Yeah. Good.
There you go.
You're doing very well.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Last question from Emmy. I'm just busting to ask about dealing with medical emergencies, especially in winter with the ice. Helicopter evacuation, maybe? I bet any eligible doctors or dentists would be a real catch for any island and its neighbors in the colder months.
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. The Coast Guard is not too far away, so unfortunately, where we are, we have cell phone service. So being able to call for help in an emergency would not be tremendously difficult. As far as I know, they have a helicopter they can send. I believe they have an ice boat or some sort of a hovercraft. I'm not sure what it is they've got, but they've got some sort of service that can send people out to help on the ice. Because, you've got people up here that go snowmobiling on the weekends. Even if they don't live on the islands or have a cottage on the islands, they'll go out snowmobiling or ATVing on the ice. You've got ice fishermen that go out as well. They might have a little hut out there or what have you. And so there's lots of people using the ice for recreation in the winter. So there are facilities for the local search and rescue people to come out and help. Fortunately, we've never needed it, but you never know.
My father-in-law is also a retired GP. So we're very fortunate he lives here on the island with us, and whenever we've had medical questions in the past with the kids, it's sometimes saved us a trip into town to be able to just take the child over to Papa and say, what's wrong, and that has been very handy.
Yep.
So
Quite true.
all right, so we're moving on here. The next question is from Katrina, and actually she's asking about the propane as well. So she says, do you have to bring that over on the boat yourself, or is there a delivery service for that? I'm assuming there's not a pipeline under the water.
Yeah, no pipeline. You can get your propane delivered. That's something you can pay extra for. There's people that will service your propane for you. But to save money, we tend to take it in ourselves and get them filled and then transport them back out again. And as I say, with the help of the neighbors, we all get that done together.
Yeah. Everybody sort of keeps in touch with where they are and when they think they might need to go and take a trip in.
Yeah, exactly.
So, good. Next is cell service from Hydron. She is wondering, how is our cell and internet service provided at our cottage? In her area, in the Adirondack Mountains in northern New York, she says that their towers or antennas can't be any taller than the surrounding trees. So cell phones don't really work very well where she is. So for us, our internet is decent.
Yeah, the towers here are definitely much taller than the trees. So I think for visual, it would be nice not to have the towers taller than the trees. Those are some good rules for your area. But around here, they've definitely built huge towers, and so they they do provide some pretty good service, and we've got full LTE service with pretty good signal strength out here at the island. So yeah, that much we don't have to worry about. But here in Canada, they don't provide us with a lot of data, so we still have to watch that element of our usage a little bit.
Yeah, we use our phones as hotspots.
Yeah, for internet
connection. Right. So when I upload videos, I run my phone, the Wi-Fi off my phone, and then the download through there. So
right.
It's it was interesting to get used to. When we first started getting cell service up here, remember we used to have to go, if you wanted to make a phone call on your cell phone, you had to go to the highest point in the island and hope you got a signal.
That's right.
And then call from there. So things have come a long way.
They certainly have.
Since then. Okay, so now we've got a question here about us. I've mentioned that possibly in the future it might be a bit of a dream of ours to live here for, at least try it out for a year and see if we could hack it. So Krisha Crafts asks, I can see why you'd want to live there full time. If you tried to stay year round, would you add a freezer source? I'd worry more of starving to death than the bears during the hard winter. So yeah, I mean, we would clearly need to do some serious
We'd have to do some real planning, and that's a good question. That's something we've thought about as well. We might have to get a propane freezer, at least until it actually froze up outside, and then maybe we could keep part of our frozen food outside or something like that to try to save fuel. But, you know, the more appliances you have that use propane, you know, the more propane you have to have. So then you have to think about all that sort of thing.
That as well.
Yeah, and obviously you have to make sure you've got enough to last the winter, because there's no guarantee that the ice is going to freeze enough for you to make it across to get more supplies. So you have to minimize the number of things that rely on the fuel. But yeah, a propane freezer wouldn't be a bad idea. Lots of canned food, lots of dried food, that sort of thing. So these are the details that we haven't quite worked out, but those are all good points.
Yeah. We also have some space under the cottage, you know, where the area is higher, sort of under the breeze room, where if we wanted to, and I use the royal we loosely here because it would be you doing all the work of closing that in,
right,
and maybe providing some extra storage space down there.
That's right. So, we got plenty of space to create whatever resources we need, but the question is, you know, exactly how do you manage all that? So
yeah. Okay, the next question is actually a really good one, and I'm glad you're here to answer it. So this is from Knit and Fool, who says, I said we have 3 solar panels. We actually have 4. We have 3 on the one side and 1 new one from last summer on the back side of the roof. And she asks, how many batteries do you have, and are they marine batteries? And did John set up the system himself? There's numerous questions in here, so I'll just start with that question first.
Sure. Well, batteries? You know, the solar system could probably be a podcast all to itself. There's a lot of elements to it. There's 4 batteries, and they're not marine batteries. They're a deep cycle battery that's meant, you know, specifically for use in solar. And we have about, I think they're 550 amp hours each, so just over 2,000 amp hours, which, you know, you have to get as much as you feel you're going to use. So with us, we've got, you know, the fridges, we've got you know, stereo and television and various electronics that we charge up, and we can also run the water pump and the vacuum and stuff like that off there as well, if we want to. We also run the pump off the generator a little bit too to save some power. My
sewing machine.
And Caroline's sewing machine, of course, the most important thing. So yes, we've got 4 batteries, and that's in this particular case they're arranged in a 24 volt system. That then we have an inverter to make it into 110, so that you can use whatever appliances you want that you would normally use in your house. So that's the basics of the system, and we put in the extra panel last year facing slightly east, whereas the other ones face west to try to catch some of the morning sun.
It's been great.
Yeah, just to try to get the batteries back up to charge a little more efficiently and provide as much power as we can. So for now it works very well. I don't really see the need to have any more power than that. But you know, if you wanted to add another appliance, let's say an electric freezer, for instance, as opposed to going with a propane freezer, well, that would use quite a bit more power. And you know, if you were going to stay over the winter, you got to think about the fact that you get a lot less sun in the winter time than you do in the summer. So you know, would you have enough in that case? And all these are part of those questions you have to answer. But yeah, the solar system has been working very well.
Yeah, it's been great. Her next question is our floor insulated? She says, I suppose it is because it would make the cabin mighty cold in the winter if it wasn't.
Right. Well, the floor is actually the only part of the house that is not insulated.
Yeah.
The walls and the ceiling are insulated. And fortunately, because hot air rises, the cabin stays quite nice and warm in the winter, even though the floor isn't heated or isn't insulated. But if you were going to live here all year round, you'd have to insulate because you'd still lose too much heat through there, and you know your feet would be cold all the time. If you're just coming here to spend a weekend in the middle of winter, then it's not so bad, and in the spring and fall, it's fine. But yeah, right now it's not insulated.
And sometimes, in fact, if you have a nice, really bright, sunny weekend, and I don't come up in the winter. I don't like to go. I won't go over the ice. So every year they try to convince me to come, and I, as of yet, have not done it. So John comes over with the kids, and if it's a nice sunny weekend, sometimes it can actually get too hot with the wood stove going and whatnot. So, you know.
Yeah, it gets nice and warm in here with the wood stove. That's for sure. It does a good job.
Okay, so Mirly also asked about the internet signal, whether it was good, and if we needed some special equipment. So I think we pretty much covered all of that. We don't need special equipment. We just use our phones.
Yeah, just the phones do the trick, yeah.
Knit One Breathe Two, which is my friend Alyssa, who's actually from London, Ontario as well. And John, please explain how a septic system works. Now, I think you pretty much did that already.
Right, well, the basics are that the waste goes into a tank, which then it actually filters into another tank first. And the tank is supposed to contain this natural bacteria that breaks down your waste. And then by the time it sits in that tank and sort of filters through, I'm not quite sure how long that takes. Probably depends on how much you're using the system. But when it gets to the top of that second tank, that's when it's had time to break down with bacteria. Then it starts to filter into a series of pipes that are just under the surface of the ground over the space almost the size of a swimming pool. That's how big it would be. And it filters through these pipes, and then this weeping bed, as they call it, sort of allows that liquid to filter down through into, you know, layers of gravel and dirt and sand that's probably, depending on your septic system, maybe, you know, 5 feet deep. And so it takes, you know, probably months, years for that to actually filter down into the ground and into the natural system again. By the time it gets there, it's, you know, it's been cleaned by all those natural systems. So that's the idea behind a septic / weeping bed type of system.
That was the first thing that we put in here.
Right.
The very first thing that we put in was the septic system, and it was not cheap.
No, that we didn't do ourselves because you need big, you know, digging equipment to you know, clear the land.
I have to figure out why this thing cuts off after about 23 minutes. So.
Right. So we brought in some big digging equipment and had a company come in and actually do the entire septic system because it's too complicated and, you know, too heavy to try to do yourself. So that part was all put in by somebody else. So they got to bring it over in a barge, bring the diggers over in a barge, bring all the fill in with the barge and get that all done. So yeah.
So it's a big deal, but it's good to have a nice working septic system.
It is. You know,
and we got a really big one, a big tank.
We got a big one. It's one of the requirements of any house that you put up now is to get a certain size septic. But the nice thing about it is it, you know, it has a good capacity, so you don't have to worry about, you know, having lots of guests around and using the system more. Whereas if you try to go with a bio toilet or something like that, which are legal. And some people try to get away with those. You know, they work if you've only got a couple of people using it, but once you get up to, you know, family or a bunch of guests, then they tend to get overwhelmed, and you can imagine what an overwhelmed toilet would look like. So we prefer to have our standard septic system.
Luxury.
That's right. No overflowing toilets here.
No,
Not yet, anyway.
Not yet. No, that's good. Okay, Alyssa also asks, and I really like this question. She says to both of us, what do you miss the most about the city when you're at the cottage, and vice versa? So what do you miss most about the city when you're here?
I can't say I miss much. We're looking forward to being able to spend, a lot of months up here in the future when the kids are grown and we've got some more time to ourselves. I like to go running for exercise, and the city has more trail system than you find up here. Here you kind of have to run down the dirt road if you want to go for a run. So when you ask what I miss most, that's probably on a week-to-week basis what I would think about more when I'm here. But in terms of anything else, like conveniences or that sort of thing, we don't really miss too much.
And he means he has to boat over to the mainland,
right,
to go for a run. He can't. There's no dirt paths on the island. It's just all rock. There's
right.
no way to really run here on the island.
What about you? What do you miss?
What do I miss? The only thing I really miss when I'm here from the city is having a really hot shower.
That's true. That is a nice thing to have when you get home.
Because I love it, and
the unlimited internet is also
unlimited
nice
internet,
city,
and I know that our
say.
son also misses that. That would be his
yeah.
thing that he misses, is the unlimited internet. But when you're here, that's kind of
Yeah, it's not that big a deal.
No.
Yeah.
And what do I miss most? What do you miss most about the cottage when you're in the city? I'd have to say everything.
Yeah, that's hard to put your finger on.
Yeah.
The isolation is nice all by itself. The lake, being able to go swimming whenever you want, that's really nice. Yeah, the wildlife. It's a much simpler life up here, and that's what I like about it. Everything is a little smaller, a little simpler. There's no lawn to mow.
We miss everything about the cottage when we're not here.
That's
sure. The easy answer to that question. Okay, next up was my friend Donna. Sorry, her thing is Donna Ma, but it's Dawn from Codependent Knitters in Sarnia. And Dawn also wanted to know about the wind power. Is wind generated power a thing for houses? It's so windy there. I thought I saw a little wind power doohickey on a sailboat vlog that I watch. Well, your dad has a little mini windmill, but it's never worked properly, has it?
Yeah, people do definitely use wind power, and you can set up a windmill to feed your battery system just like the solar panels do. And they do work. They just tend to be a little bit more of a pain than the solar stuff. There's a lot of moving parts. You tend to need a big tower or a flagpole or something to mount your equipment on, and they require more maintenance, whereas the solar panels are just so simple. They don't, no moving parts at all, and so they're just easier to deal with. So if you need more power, I would be inclined to add another solar panel rather than the wind. Now, if you had trouble with sun exposure in your area and you weren't generating enough power, then the wind might be a good option. But at the moment, we don't have that issue, so it's not something we've had to consider. But we do see other people with windmills around, and I think they get something out of it.
Yeah. Good. Okay, Patchy Pony Stitcher wants to know, do the bears live on the island permanently? And I would say no. The bears, we'll have one bear for the season, and then towards the end of August, they tend to move on to find their winter grounds.
Yeah, they tend to come around in the summer more. I don't know what their movements are exactly, but yeah, towards the end of August or so, they tend to move, I believe, north to find their winter grounds, and so they're not around here, at least in the winter months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So another bear question. I was talking the other day about how our neighbors had taken a picture of the bear that visited them, and they'd set off bear banger.
Mm-hmm.
So she wants to know, I'm wondering, I was mentioning bear bangers. I'm wondering if that would be similar to the old pan and lid that I used to move our bear out of our yard here in southwestern Pennsylvania. makes quite a loud racket and works rather well. No, a bear banger is an actual physical.
Yeah, it's a little device. I've never actually used one myself, but it makes a sound that sounds like a gunshot, so you can hear it for miles around. And but any noise making machine is effective at getting rid of the bear. I mean, if they're skittish already, a little bit of noise will make them run. But if they're getting a bit more bold, then loud clanging noise, even pots and pans and stuff tends to work. So we also have bear spray in case they get close. But again, never actually had to use it before. So, and hopefully we won't have to. Most people around here are pretty good about not keeping their garbage and waste out to attract the bears or make them more friendly or to domesticate them. You don't want to make them so that they feel comfortable around your house. And so fortunately most of the bears around here are still pretty wild and skittish, so they don't stick around very easily. But occasionally you hear about ones that get too bold, and then they either have to call the ministry to come and get them moved, or if they refuse to do that, then you have to take more extreme measures. But fortunately, we haven't had to do that ourselves.
Yeah. Okay, we've got a couple of fishing questions. So these are definitely for you, not for me.
Okay.
What type of fish do you catch?
Well, we're not huge fisher people in our family, but when we do go, you catch anything from smallmouth bass. There is rainbow trout and northern pike. Those are all popular. I think in the fall, some fishermen get muskie as well. So all the usual things that you probably find in the lakes in northern U.S. and so on as well. We get pickerel here, which I believe you guys call walleye in the States.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
or
neat.
Maybe it's the other way around. Anyway, so the fishing here in the Great Lakes isn't as good as it used to be. There's been a lot of commercial fishing that's gone on over the years, so we're not quite as packed with fish as maybe some of the inland lakes are, but certainly people who know what they're doing and where to go still have some good luck. But as I say, we don't actually get out and fish all that much ourselves.
Yeah. So she also asks, do you ice fish in the winter? We don't, but lots of other people around here do.
Certainly see other people do it closer to shore, closer to town, but we've never tried. So,
what type of winter activities do you do? Since you're the one that's out here, what do you like to do here in the winter that I don't do because I'm not here?
Well, when we come across, we snowshoe, so that's the main activity. And certainly, we get out the sled for the kids and that sort of thing, and that can be fun. That's pretty much it around here. We can certainly do cross country skiing and that sort of thing too, and there's some downhill ski areas that are not too far away. But in terms of what we do right out here on the island, it's mostly snowshoeing.
Okay, so Ida asks, does your father-in-law live here year-round? No, he doesn't. None of us there are no people on this island that live here year-round. And like we've said, one day perhaps, but it would require great planning.
Mm-hmm. There's not too many people that live out on the islands year-round. There are some communities a little further south from here that apparently do live year-round, or at least they used to, and they used to even have a horse and sled that came around and picked up the kids for school, and a post office out on the islands and all that sort of thing. Some of them may still do it. I really don't know, but that's not too many years ago that they had those little communities set up. But where we are, we're a little further away from the mainland, and so it would not be the easiest place to spend the whole winter. But that doesn't mean we're not going to try it one day. So we'll see.
That's exciting. Okay, Nancy has another question about the water, which I kind of missed before. About our tank. How does that tank get refilled, and where does your water come from? So the water comes from the lake, and we have a pump down in the lake that pumps the water up, and that pump is run off of solar?
Well, it can run off either system, the solar or the generator. But it's the same kind of submersible pump that you use in a well. It's exactly the same kind of pump, except it sits in the lake and it pushes the water up to the pressure tank. And it does a nice job. It's we just run it once or twice a day, depending on how much water you need. So it doesn't come out automatically, but it runs when you need it, when you see the water pressures dropping.
Somebody will yell, "We're out of water," and
Right.
then John
And
will
then
go
you
turn on
just
the pump,
run the
or
pump
I'll turn
and
on the pump, and
fills it up in about 5-10 minutes, and then you've got water for another few hours. So it works pretty nicely.
when you have guests, obviously we're filling the tank a lot more than
You might
that.
be doing it three times a day at that point.
Okay, Lynn Boysen has a great question. I really like hers. She says, "Are you permitted to build more cottages on your cottage? Would you consider doing one each for the children?"
Yeah, we've thought about it. The lot is 5 acres in size, so you could put probably a couple more houses on it. With permission. The township, requires you to have permits for these things, but you could probably put a couple more cottages on it and get away with that. Would we build one each for the kids? I don't know. We'll have to see. That's a lot of work, but you never know. It's a possibility. At least one more I could see doing in the next 10 or 15 years, putting up one other cabin of some kind. Yeah.
We're fortunate in that our children love it here. They both love it here. And even though Sarah is now somewhat of an adult, she still, of her own volition chooses to come back here whenever she can. And so, we know some other families in the area where maybe their children aren't, quite as in love with coming up here. So I think that we're pretty fortunate in that, so that hopefully in the future they'll want to come and hang out with us here as well. And it'd be nice.
It would be. That's the dream.
That's the dream. Okay. What happens with all of your wastewater? Not a glamorous question, but I'm curious. We did answer that. All the wastewater goes into the septic system.
Right.
That was from Linda. So thank you, Linda. And I think that's it. We answered everything.
All right. Well,
You answered everything.
More questions.
To be clear.
We can do this again.
Would you do this again?
I'll do it again. It's been fun.
You're such a good sport. You're such a good sport, and so well spoken, and so handsome.
Well, thank
clever.
you for letting me onto your secret world for the first time.
Well, thanks for joining me.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you tomorrow, and tomorrow is a Stitch With Me video, and I've got a couple of questions that I'll chat about tomorrow. So, happy stitching.
Bye, everybody.